Good evening. Welcome to the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum. Thank you, Mr. Weisenbach, for opening the doors of this hallowed hall to be able to have the public come in and present a program, one of many. I had the pleasure of speaking to Carl earlier, I believe last week, and Carl let me know that this fiscal year 175,000 people have came to Abilene for the purposes of coming to the Eisenhower Presidential Library and enjoying the other things Abilene has to offer at the same time. Thank you very much for this evening. Thank you much for what you do for the legacy of Dwight David Eisenhower. What we have in front of us tonight is an opportunity for four of our local government entities to answer a set of questions that we presented them earlier in this process. They're all pretty much the same per entity as it applies to the entity. We have two people at the back who will provide you with note cards and pens to submit audiences from you, the audience that are here tonight. But the reason we have a camera here is what you see. It's with schedules and timing, it's very hard to get a significant number of people to anything that doesn't involve public hangings, and we're against those. So we appreciate people from the local government who will take the time to talk to those who come and also those who will watch. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for the folks who are up here, and if you don't mind, what we'll do is we have Jeff Bathurst from USD 435. He drew the short straw tonight. Laverne Myers, Dickinson County Commission. Kent Wyatt from Memorial Health Systems Board. And we have John Ray from the city of Abilene, who's the mayor in this term. So thanks, gentlemen. Okay, without further ado, the first question to all of you is the same. What is the state of your organization as measured by your governing bodies? How you doing? Jeff?
Well, I did really draw the short straw, didn't I?
You bet.
You know, our school district is doing very well. Obviously, we'll talk about these later. We have a lot of things on our plate right now that we're looking at. And enrollment is up this year, and enrollment has been increasing. A lot of our buildings, we're running out of room. And so, you know, a lot of what we have to deal with is what the state hands down to us. And so we know those struggles that we've had to deal with in the last almost a decade, now the last 5 years anyways. And so but we're looking forward to the future, what it brings.
Thank you. Laverne?
Okay, we feel like from the county aspect, we have a very strong and positive future for our county, and we always are looking for the infrastructure to make sure that we have our roads and bridges up to par and in good shape, and also we feel like that if we can provide the services that people expect, that it also makes it a good place to raise a family and want people to come to our county and start businesses and be a part of our county.
Thank you, Laverne. Kent? Hold the microphone if you would.
The Memorial Health System at this time is currently very strong financially. We have had extremely good years in the past several years. This is the first time since 1922 that all our clinical and health services are provided in a new hospital, which we're extremely proud of. 10 years ago we had 222 employees. We had a board meeting this afternoon and we're up to 448 employees. So we're extremely happy with that. We feel our medical staff, in the addition of 2 new doctors which started the 1st of September, has made us in an extremely good position. We're a little different than most hospitals our size in that we are extremely diverse in the lines of business we have. We are not just a hospital. We've got home health and hospice. We do village manor. We do impact sports. So we've got a wide variety of things that we contribute, and we're quite happy to be in the community and continue to expand so that we can be a vital part of it.
Thanks. Mr. John Ray from the city of Abilene. If you pull that mic back to you.
Okay. From a financial standpoint, the city has a very good bond rating and is in good shape. For example, in our general fund, we ensure we have a minimum of $1 million to handle emergencies and carry over at least that amount into the next budget year. Also, the library swimming pool project that is due to sunset in 2017. A big plus is we have an excellent city staff and city workers. Our city manager is working on economic development and business plans where visitors will receive coupon incentives to shop in other Abilene businesses. We also have some future challenges such as the Southeast Drainage Project and the need to renovate the City Hall complex. At our study session this morning, our city manager presented a plan to assess the City Hall complex, which was constructed in 1929 and is anticipated to require considerable cost to renovate. We attract 80,000 to 100,000 visitors, tourists, thanks to the Eisenhower Center here on an annual basis. And when I talk to commissioners and mayors from other cities, they are very envious of our tourist situation. Numbers.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Myers the second go around. I hate to pick on Jeff every time for the first question. The last time I did that, it didn't go so well. Jeff, this question's really on what's the view from the school district point of view about our community growth versus hold on to what we have or faced with shrinkage. What is your view of grow or hold pat?
Well, me personally, and I believe that the people, teachers, and everybody within the school district has been looking forward and looking at the growth aspect. And it's not necessarily growth as in buildings or infrastructure or anything like that, but even just growth in our teachers' ability to teach in the classroom, the growth in the tools that they can use. You know, we introduced iPads in our school district, and you know, with my daughter, we went to the teachers' conference, and you know, there's teachers now that are doing everything through those iPads without papers, and so I think as you look at it, if you're not growing, you know, we've all heard about that slippery slope. If we're not moving up the rope, we're probably sliding down. And so it's easy for us, if we're not looking forward and growing, it's easy for us to get relaxed and find ourselves slipping in some areas.
I gave you the first question after all.
Well, I'll get you later. So.
I knew you could carry the load. Laverne, from the county, Dickinson County, what's your view on promoting growth or hanging on?
Well, I share the same viewpoint that Jeff said, that we have to continue to grow if we want Dickinson County to be prosperous, and so anything we can do to promote new businesses to come to our county and increase our tax base. I think the last few years that has really helped us in the budget process to be able to have the tax base go up a little bit, and we have to continue to do that, and it's so our comprehensive plan outlines that we are very supportive and trying to bring newcomers in and keep the businesses that we have here.
Thank you. Ken?
Our board of directors from the health system basically feel that if we try and just hold our own and stay pat, that things are going to decline, and when things start to decline, things start to die. And for us to stay in that position, we felt was extremely bad, which is why we made the decision to go ahead and build the new hospital. We needed to move forward. We needed to be able to recruit new doctors, new people to our area. And if we just stayed pat with what we had, we were not only with outdated building, we just did not have the ability to compete and stay with what we needed to in today's market, because it is a changing market. It's been noted in the last 10 years, if you've looked at healthcare, how drastic things have changed, and we've got a lot more changes that are currently coming. We do not plan on just staying as is. We feel it's quite important to continue to move forward.
Okay, thank you. John?
From our city managers, his staff, and the city commissioners is always on the lookout to attract new businesses to Abilene. We are also interested in ensuring we have incentives in place for our current businesses to expand their operations and hire additional employees. Current plans include downtown revitalization plan, long-range water supply plan, and facilities assessment planning.
Laverne, I'm going to bounce back a follow-up to you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
As the mayor listed some of the things the city is doing to promote what he said about growth and his vision of growth, do you have some projects in mind that the county can be specifically helpful for to promote Abilene's growth?
Well, when you look at it from a county aspect, a lot of it is what kind of services you provide for the people. And like I say, I think we've been very proactive in our health and EMS service and with the new facilities that were put in a few years back. Another aspect that people look for is they want good safety, and I feel like that also is where the Sheriff's Department has done an excellent job. And of course, we are in that area. That is one area that we are looking at in the future that we would like to update as far as the Justice Center and a lot of the security things now that are being put in place. The old facilities would not be adequate or would have to be modified to the extreme. So we're looking, to serve the public and that's and at the same time be reasonable in taxation so that people will want to come to the county.
Okay, thank you, Laverne. I'm going to give you the next question, if that's all right, and it's what's the governing body's view of transparency to its constituents, and what have you done to accomplish your goals? I think, again, as you look out here tonight, it's always hard to be face-to-face with people in a public setting. It's part of modern life. So what's the county's view on trying to be transparent to the people who provide not only the votes but the funds, and what have you done over the last few years to promote that?
Well, one of the things I feel like since I've been on the board that we have made steps in trying to be more transparent and getting information out to the public and getting feedback. And one of the things we did a couple of years ago was to videotape our commission meetings, and those are actually on our website, archived on our website, that if you can go and look up any of the meetings, or if you just want to look at the recent meeting, you can. And I think we've had budget meetings, but like I say, it's hard for people to leave their homes and go to the meetings, and I think, like I say, we will be trying to pursue more of our, I think even our planning meetings are trying to be videoed. So I think with this modern age of technology, I think people are looking at more going to their computer and pulling up a website and at their time at home when they can do that.
Thank you. Kent?
The health system tries as best it can, and we really strive to make sure that people understand what we're trying to do to get it out in front of them. Like the rest of everybody here, we've got open meeting laws, so anybody can attend and find out exactly what we're doing. But we think it's extremely important to make sure that all our constituents understand what the health system is striving to do, trying to benefit the community, and make sure everybody understands what our goals are.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it is a priority for us to keep our citizens informed. Our website has lots of information for citizens to read. Our city manager prepares his blog after every commission meeting, which explains what was approved and not approved. He also sends out blogs on the status of current issues, such as the status of our water supply, city projects, and economic development. In May 2013, Sunshine Review completed a review of our website and gave us a B rating for website transparency. In our study session this morning, we discussed changing the structure of city commission meetings, with the objective of making them more accessible to the public. The public has always been welcome to attend our study sessions and commission meetings and make comments.
Jeff?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to fourth the web page issue. You know, I think that's important, and that's today's technology. You know, without the local paper, or without the web pages, it would be hard to get people to hear what's going on. You know, our minutes are posted there, and our meetings are posted on the calendar for when we will have our meetings, and they are open for the public to observe. And you know, I appreciate what Denise has done within the paper and the articles that she's written, and I think that's just a good way for us to communicate, you know, as a school district, what's going on. I feel that we're pretty public because there's a lot of parents and a lot of people have either grandsons or kids in school, and so they know what's going on in their schools, and that's a good thing, and we just, you know, strive to communicate with the community what we're doing.
Well, I'll commiserate with you a little. Being in business, reaching out to people and delivering a message is always a challenge. Every business or every organization suffers that exact same challenge. And in today's world of fractured and rapid communications, just like your daughter and my son are doing most of their work on that iPad, if you can't enter the stream where the people are, it becomes increasingly difficult to get your message across. You're not alone in facing the same problems. My message to you. But the intent of our question, and you can comment or not, but I would ask a follow-up. Seeing that these challenges are there of getting people to the decision process, to the actual discussion of side A versus side B, which only happens with the Sunshine Law in those meetings in that session. How do we get the public re-engaged? You can take it as, I ask you the question about what have you done, but how do we as a community get the public to engage with us, and what should it be worth to us to try? Any takers?
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question. If you
That's what it costs.
you probably wouldn't be hosting us tonight. You'd be doing something else, speaking something else. You know, I think that you look at our voter turnout, and all those things reflect a lot of apathy that individuals have. And, you know, I think just we have to be in the forefront in engaging people and let them, you know, bring it to people in votes and the issues that we have. And I think that's just a way for them to feel engaged, is when they have a say. And I think we can do a better job with that in the ways that we can. Find ways to try to get positive feedback or negative feedback, and I think just it's going to take little steps, I guess, probably.
Laverne, when I first called on the county commissioners in Dickinson County, I referred to it as they met in a closet with what few pews could fit in there. And now you're downstairs in a large meeting room with a web stream running. I consider that progress. Why did you make that change, and what did it cost you?
We're very fortunate. Brad Holman, our administrator, has a great deal of technology and setting up microphones and cameras, and when you really look into it, it doesn't cost you very much at all. It probably costs you more to put it on the web than what it does to set up the facility. And I guess I'd encourage people to go to our website and pull it up just to see, but the clarity of the picture and everything, and the voice sound picks up well. It's just like this, we have a microphone in front of us. And I guess when we decided to do that, all three commissioners was pretty much on board to do it. It does, at first I thought, well, I'm really going to have to be careful in what I'm saying, because this is, you know, but you get comfortable, I felt like, real quick, and conduct the meeting professionally, and like I say, we handle our business, I feel, without making people get concerned about it or upset about what we say. And most of the time, you know, I feel like we've But our website, like I say, is, and the thing that I didn't realize was maybe the benefit of it was when people do come in to present something, or people that come in and have a complaint, the sign is up that is being videotaped, and they respect that, I think, and I think it does have an effect on persons that come in that's going to be over the top, I'd say. And also the other aspect was it, and even myself, sometimes I'll go back and watch it, because when you're doing the meeting, there's little things that you maybe forgot or didn't pick up on. When you watch it, it is a record of that meeting, and if somebody says that wasn't said, well, we have a record that it was said. So I think it's a real benefit.
I commend you in what you've done. I've seen as high as 60 to 80 people that logged in and watched your meetings, and I've never been to a meeting. You couldn't have put 60 people in the old room if you stacked them like firewood.
We actually are still in the old room, though, upstairs. So, but like I say, it's not really that hard to set up to do.
Kent, I'll pick on you because I've told you twice to pull that microphone already and you forget every time. The biggest challenge, even when you have people willing to come and present themselves to the public, and Kent has been in front of us several times with a microphone and done this, so I know it's not his persona to not to want to answer the questions. It's just not natural to speak to a microphone until you do it enough to be comfortable, I guess. But there isn't an organization in town that has done a better job, I suppose, of putting their growth on view than the hospital. From the point it went through the public hearing process, I think we were in Eisenhower twice filming, and we were at the depot once filming, and there was a lot of outreach where we toured almost every phase of the hospital after the vote was taken. We had that on camera and in front of the public. And there have been, Tim has had numerous articles in the paper as progress went along as well. So, you know, we didn't really knock on too many of those doors. We might have knocked on a few of them, but really it was just a partnership where the hospital saw it within their self-interest to tell people what they were doing. So, when I was there and did the video the other day of the finished hospital, that was really nice to see as a person. But it's really nice to know that through that process of the hospital and investing its money, as well as the community's value system, that it was transparent. Whether you see it as a benefit or you see it as not a benefit, the process was transparent to the public all the way through. What did you think about that process?
It was pretty enlightening to me personally. When you sit back and think of all the information that you have to provide to the community to make them as fully aware and as informed as you can on every aspect, from, you know, we started with asking the city on the closing of 10th Street to the construction, to the financing of the construction, which we asked the city to become involved in because it drastically helped our bond rating, which helped the rates, which helps our payments. It was enlightening to me to find out how much information you have to provide. And even though you sit back and we've got a great staff at the hospital, you think you've answered everything, you think you've covered everything, and then you go to the meetings that you're talking about and people still come up with additional questions, and it makes you sit back and think. But we had to be as prepared as we could and show them what our goals were and how we wanted to build this hospital and how important we thought this hospital was to our community. So we had to be as transparent and tell them everything. I mean, it was vital that we did.
Thank you. Do you have any follow-up, Mr. Ray?
We discussed this in our study session this morning. The possibility of maybe recording our commission meetings. At this far, I don't have more information on it, but we did talk about it, and I think it's something we need to do.
Thank you, appreciate that. Kent, as soon as I find it. You've already answered this question, but you're going to get to do it again. So what's the status of the facilities of the hospital? How's phase 2 going? If you want to be more specific, we have an audience question specifically about phase 2 in the old hospital. So could you talk
so that
to
everybody understands what we did our hospital construction in 2 phases, which was the first phase was actually the construction of a hospital that is now complete. The second phase was the remodeling of the existing hospital so that we could bring our physicians into that structure along with home health and hospice and some other things so that they are connected to our hospital. And everything is in one vicinity there. Currently where we are at is the Alberici, who is the general contractor for our construction, has gone in and basically done demolition on the existing hospital. The purpose of that was so people such as heating and air and electricians and plumbers could actually come in and view what was there, because it's extremely hard for anybody to give a bid on remodeling when they don't know what's there. So that part of the demolition has occurred. We now have proposals out to companies to give us bids back on the finishing of that structure to get it all set up into the doctors' hospitals and that. So that's where we're at right now. We're in the process of obtaining the proposals back on that so that the board can then sit down and we can make our decisions and finish the completion of that.
Okay. Thank you. The facilities question for you, Mr. A, is on First Street. That rebuild project, everybody got to watch that. It's a very nice wide street. I'm sure it took a lot of money. What's the status of that, and how happy are you with it?
Get to this right here. Except for the intersection of First and Buckeye, the construction of the street is complete. However, the grass needs to be replanted by the Smoky Hill contractor in the area between the street and sidewalk. The city will plant new trees where trees were removed during construction. Each resident who had a tree removed were given a choice from 5 replacement trees, of which will not have large roots which may damage the water and the sewer lines. The last piece of the intersection of East First Street, which is a joint KDOT city-funded project, which means KDOT pays 90% of the cost, and the city will pay 10% funded project, and it's scheduled to be let to bid in late February or early March with the proposed construction in early May. Now, to follow on to that, we have some question on why was First Street constructed during the using a 2-lane with a center turn lane specifications. The city looked at several options to address the heavy truck traffic that uses the street as a major farm to market route. While the peak use of the street only occurs during harvest, this option allows for the best movement of traffic during these higher traffic periods. In addition, the street was constructed at a heavier standard to ensure that it would be sufficient for heavy truck weights for many years. The city had to eliminate parking on the street in order to make the street wide enough for the center turn lane. Prior to making this decision, the city conducted several public meetings that the general public was invited to provide feedback for project's design. Property owners living on the East First Street were also invited to attend. Of those who attended the meetings, the majority wanted a center turn lane and were open to giving up on-street parking. Short driveways were constructed for those people who did not have off-street parking to accommodate the no parking designation on that. I think there's one other question came up. Why did the city stop the East Street project where it did instead of going all the way to the intersection? And the answer to that is the East First Street project scope did not include the entire street, because the city included a portion of the street in the first and Buckeye intersection project that will be let to bid early next year, so that this project will be 90% funded by KDOT under the KDOT Geometric Improvement Program. The project is estimated to cost $768,200, but will only cost the city $76,820.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate those additional questions and answers. Jeff, you probably have a lot to tell us about the state of the facilities, USD 435.
Yeah, and I might back up a little bit of what kind of led us up to where we are today. And you talk about transparency and what we've done to do that. And this summer we've had two different groups from community groups get together. And the first thing we looked at was strategic planning and where we wanted the school district to be in 10 years with our education system. And that was district-wide. We looked at the classrooms, what was being taught in the classrooms, and what we're getting extracurricular activities. And also that group just touched on facilities a little bit. And we went in deeper, and we had a group that spent a great time on facilities, and that was their specific goal, to come up with a recommendation of what they thought as a community group, what our school district needed. And so that's kind of what this summer has been, what's been going on in the summer in the background, and trying to get people involved. And I'll go through a brief history of our schools. And Garfield was built in 1942, McKinley in 1951, Abilene High School in 1955, and Kennedy in 1963. That's quite a stretch of buildings being built in a short time. And also, I think the city building was built in 1950s.
1929.
Oh, 1929. Okay, I thought it was later than that. So, but and the middle school was done in 1975, and it's been 38 years since we have built a new building. The Board of Education has made updates to our buildings to maintain them. In 1992, window air conditioner units were put in at Abilene High School, McKinley, and Garfield, and upgrades were made to the middle school in 2004. And so we kind of anticipate that those window units are kind of reaching their life expectancy, being put in 1992. New windows were installed in 2004 at Abilene High School, McKinley, and Garfield, and Kennedy Edition in 2006, and McKinley Edition in 2010, and new windows were installed in Kennedy in 2013. And there's been other various infrastructure upgrades in our buildings. Education has changed over the years. Some of the things that have impacted our students: when Garfield was built, they went home for lunch and they came back to school. And so the federal lunch program was established in 1946. So we now feed students breakfast, lunch, and school snacks. We have students in our schools from 5 o'clock in the morning to 5:30 in the evening, excluding sports activities. And in 1975, the Individuals with Disability Education Act was established. Before this time, students with disabilities didn't attend school. They were often institutionalized. When AMS was built, students with disabilities were bused to Kennedy. Now we have special education services in all our buildings. And in 1955, when the high school was built, there were no girls' sports. I wasn't around to attest to that, but that's what I've heard. And we have added upwards of 10 new team sports activities since the building was built, including girls' sports. And so that's kind of a history of what we've done. And we hired an architect to give us some long-range planning, and this process has kind of led us where we are currently looking to do, and the issues we're looking at. And the opportunity for us to expand a new elementary school is desired, and the opportunity to build around the new portions of the high school long-term to replace the current high school are available for future boards and citizens. And I guess what we're looking at doing is we're looking to adding on to the high school some practice gyms and auditorium, and that's going to free up some space within the high school. This is a little question coming up earlier, but all our schools, we're looking at addressing the safety issues we have. And we have some major safety issues within the high school and within the elementary schools of being able to control traffic coming into the building. And so we're looking at trying to be proactive in that. We know by a weekly basis we can hear of something going on tragically in our school districts around our nation. It's a tragedy. And so within doing those things that we're looking at doing, if so, the board in 30 years or whatever else they want to do, we have a long-term goal that they can use those auditoriums and they can use those gyms that they add on the high school too, or they can take the elementary school that will be replaced in Garfield and they can bring in the elementary kids. And so we have a long-range plan that what we spend today or what we may spend today can be used 50, 60 years down the road.
I have a comment and a follow-up question for you. I was told, I think maybe 5 years ago, that you could not put one more PE class in the gymnasium at the high school. That it was at capacity, had been at capacity for. That's during the day education of physical education. That couldn't have improved as your enrollment has climbed.
No, and our enrollment has been fairly steady, but it's steadily increasing also. And like currently in the cafeteria, if you went to visit lunchtime, there'd be kids sitting on the floor because they didn't have room for seats. And if anybody has been involved with their kids in sports, and mine are just now getting involved in middle school sports, but when we're involved in the community building, the place is, you can't get a floor space for people to have sports activities or to exercise or to play basketball. It's just booked. And so those are great needs, I believe, in our community. I can't tell you what the education might look like in 20 years, but I can tell you that a community probably will be getting together for sports activities, or they'll be gathering in an auditorium like this to meet. And so I think those spaces, yes, they're expensive, but they're highly valuable for the future of our community. And they're always needed for people to meet in large groups, and whether it be for sports or whether it be for music programs, bringing in other groups from out of town to perform. So.
My son's at the middle school, has been last year, and he's there this year. I've been to a few games. My daughter played volleyball for the high school a few years ago. I've been to a few games that weren't capacity. I've never been to a band or a choral event that isn't at capacity, where the seats that were set up are quickly filled. People go get chairs, set up their own, fill the room, stand in the hall. Abilene and our neighbor to the east, Chapman, too, both have great music programs and great history of singing. But I guess what I find astounding is the parents, the grandparents, the community that comes and fills up those places. I'm going to give you a chance to comment to that, and here's why. When I've heard the issue of school growth, facilities growth in the public in just the last few weeks, the first thing that came up is, do we need another auditorium? I don't know the answer to that question. If I do, it doesn't mean I put it on the other people. But I can tell you this, when you have music programs, they're full.
We have over 150 vocal students and 280 students in the 6th to 12th grade bands. And so we have a large group there. And I mentioned some things that we're looking at within high school: safety, the cafeteria. And we also have some other areas that have grown, and just because of the nature of what we have in the high school, we don't have any more space for like the wrestling team. We've had an excellent wrestling program over the years. I don't know how many have been in that building or that room, but it's not very big. And so, as we look to make improvements to the weight room, those that have been involved in activities and sports, they know how important weights have become in the last, 15, 20 years. When I was in high school, it was just kind of getting started.
Bales of hay.
Yeah, it used to be bales of hay. Now it's metal that they lift. And we have a purpose and we have a plan to use that auditorium for, like, say, a wrestling room. And so, if we, say, for example, if we did not do an auditorium, we would have to do a wrestling room, or we'd have to do something else. And so you know, yes, an auditorium is expensive, yes, the gym is expensive, but those are great investments, I believe, to the community and to the future of Abilene High School, because if we didn't do those things, we're still going to have to do something, and you're still going to have to do something 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And so this is what today's needs are, and this is what we're looking at doing. And so I think that, you know, everything kind of can fit into a puzzle piece if so desired in the community in the future years, you know, utilizing those auditoriums and gymnasiums.
Thank you, Jeff. I would like to engage Mayor Ray and Jeff both in this particular expansion of that question. I've always believed that if you simply learn from people around you and do nothing even on your own, no creativity on your own, you can at least be in second place. The guy who did it first might be in first, but if you just mimic and do it well, you can end up at least in second. And if you try a little harder on the last corner, you might make it into first. But here's where I'm going. The community of Marion worked together as a city and the school, and they're one of their expansion projects, and it's astounding. Their gymnasium structure really became a community center, a pool, and a place for lots of events that there's always something going on, and they simply work together to achieve that because they perceived neither one of them could achieve it on their own. But as an outsider, and I've worked with many of those communities a lot, what I saw was the community dynamic develop by those two entities working that problem simultaneously because we're all the same taxpayers, you know. So, but I saw them solve some really hard problems and put up an incredible facility. So it's an open question without a definition. But so my question is this: what could you conceive with the city and the school and in Laverne, in your case as well? It's in Dickinson County. For the community to put a common vision together to make these improvements to facilities that all can benefit from.
Nobody wants to speak?
Well, I feel like I've spoken. I'm going to give somebody else a break.
Oh, okay. It's been in the paper that the county commission has discussed our problems that we feel like we need to address in the Justice Department. And, you know, we're going to explore every possibility of whether it's, we have a good relationship with the police department here in Abilene, and whether there's some things that we could build that could be utilized by both instead of having to build separate facilities. And we kind of have been looking at this at a 3 or 4 year project down the road, but before long, I'm sure we will be discussing the possibilities of what could happen if we did work together. And we have started for our budget for next year that we did put in a 2 mil levy to set away some money. So if we figured if we did that for like 3 or 4 years, at least we'd have some startup money that we could deal with. Maybe the project a little easier that way. And so, like I say, I think we are determined because of security reasons that we need to do something. And it's just, there's a lot of things that could be shared, and it's just working out the details of how you can work together, I think.
And from the city standpoint, we're really interested in what you're talking about and looking at that to see. I agree with you that the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department, I like get along very well, and they talk all the time, and that's great. So from the city standpoint, we'd be interested in something like that. And we're concerned about security in the police department too.
Any comment to the facilities as regards the school?
You know, Dennis, I've been down to Marion for a football game to watch my nephews and nieces play, and that is a neat example. And we also have an example of that in our community with our community building. and that's been really a partnership too. And we've been able as a school district to utilize those gym spaces for practices, and there's other things that we do, and we appreciate that relationship we've had. And you know, one thing that we are looking at, you know, I've talked a lot about facilities tonight, and we have to figure out ways to pay for that. And you know, as a school district, our funding is very limited, and our tax base is basically a property tax, and to do things like this. And the community group that met came to us, and they came up with a lot larger number than what we were hoping for as school board members. But those needs are there, and when you start trying to cut those needs away, you might be able to trim $250,000 here, $400,000 there. Sounds like a lot of money, but it's not very much money when you're talking about a $29 million project. And it is one of the biggest, it would be one of the biggest undertakings of the Abilene School District. And so, you know, we are still, I believe we're going to have a meeting with the city and future, both boards, to look at adding a sales tax. And there's different ways that we can do that through either a dedicated sales tax, or I can't remember what the other one's called. But say, for example, if we took a 0.4% sales tax and we could apply that to our bond, that would greatly reduce the tax burden on our property owners. And I particularly look at businesses and people like that have a higher tax rate and property taxes. If you take a family, an average family that has a $100,000 home and spends $1,000 in Abilene in groceries and gas, that $1,000 they spend with that 0.4% of sales tax would cost them $4 a month. And you know, I have a large family of 6 kids, and we go through a lot of groceries and gas, and so we might be above that $1,000 in Abilene. But you know, what that also does is it helps us. We all travel to different communities and buy. Like, I shop in Salina. My wife likes shopping at Kohl's, where they pay you to shop. And that tax money stays in Salina, that sales tax money. And so when I go to Salina and shop, I'm paying for things to go on in Salina. And that's why Salina has a lower rate. It's because they have people who commute in there. In Abilene, we also have people that commute and come in to visit the Eisenhower Center. They come in for ball games. They travel along interstate. You know, there are a lot of communities that really envy Abilene's position, and because of our location, whether it be football games, flow from football games to our hotels, and many different things. And by adding a sales tax, we spread that people that are paying for those additions and improvements to our buildings to those that are visiting Abilene and spending their monies in Abilene. And whether it's coming to a ball game or what, or shopping downtown, you know, that sales tax helps us spread that tax load beyond the members of our community, and I think that's a positive thing. But I understand the needs that they have coming up in the future with their own facilities, and so you know, I think that we as a community need to come together and just make some priorities of you know, what can we afford and where do we need to go from here.
How do communities make their will known on an issue like that, other than call their individual members and talk on the phone or run into you on the street? What's the political process that we use to let the community decide that?
Well, ultimately, it comes down to the vote. I mean, we have a resolution that if we decide to make a resolution and to have a special election, to have an election on this, I mean, we can't raise taxes to do this. The community will have to say, yes, we want to do this. And so, you know, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want it any other way than the community to be able to vote on it and be able to, because it affects them. It's going to affect their lives, and it's $120 a year, maybe on a $100,000 home or whatever it is. You know, it's going to affect them, and so they need to have their voice saying that, yes, this is important to me. I see the need, and I would like or not like to do it. I think that's important.
Can't you put your funding mechanism to a vote, and it was affirmed by the community? did that give you more or less ability to succeed, both financially and how you feel about your new hospital, our new hospital, as you move forward, that the community voted on it and you followed that vote with construction?
Well, the vote that we were asking for the city, which we had to inform them of, was we wanted to, it's called PVC, and we wanted to go through that, which is, in all reality, the city guaranteeing what we were doing. And by them doing that and the public voting on to approve that, considerably lowered the rates that we were able to obtain on our bonds. And when you lower the rates on the bonds, it's just like an interest rate on a loan, the lower your payment. So it benefited us drastically in the fact that we were able to build the size of the hospital we wanted to and do that and finance it the way we wanted to and do it at a rate which was most beneficial to us, which helps payments, which allows us to not ask the city to do anything, which was the whole goal.
I guess I'm working my way up to a statement instead of a question that you can comment to, and putting a funding mechanism, whether it's sales tax or whether it was the hospital, to a vote as a community, what's the downside? Is there one?
You're always, when you're asking the public to vote on money that's going to be spent and taking money out of their pocket, there's always a downside. I look at it the fact of when you're asking, if you're talking about schools, somebody paid for my schooling besides my parents when I was there. I paid for some even though I do not have kids in school anymore. But I think I look at that as part of the community service that you're going to be doing. I mean, it's important. If you want a good town, you support your schools, and if it takes some support that way financially, then you do that. People are always looking at, and what's it going to take out of my pocket? Well, yes, it may take some money out of your pocket, but as he's mentioned with sales tax, and I think that's a very equitable tax personally, because you pay on what you spend, and nobody's making you spend. I look back at his comment about Salina. Salina put it in the paper when they built their new jail over there. We're going to increase our sales tax, and we're going to let everybody that comes to Salina pay for this. And they did, and paid for that jail in a very short time. So
the downside that you're speaking of is a potential for a negative vote, but is there a downside to the community by having a chance to vote?
I think it's always the community's responsibility to vote.
Okay. That was
if you don't vote, I don't think you have the right to criticize.
Okay.
You know, we are set up to vote, and whether you think one vote's important or not, I do. And so when you vote, you are expressing your opinion on whether it should be voted for or against, whatever. But if you don't vote, then I don't think you have that right.
Mr. Ray?
We've used the sales tax. One is for two projects. I mentioned it's going to come off in 2017 on sales tax, and that is the swimming pool and the library. And that's worked very well for us on that. When we were looking at, when the Board of Education came to the city and was wanting us to be willing to use, we're only allowed so much money we can do in sales tax. By the way, the other thing we did with sales tax is a special street improvement, and that was recently approved. Well, they came to us, and all we were trying to vote on at that time was that they would be allowed to bring the sales tax issue to vote, so the citizen could vote on it. Unfortunately, it didn't pass the city commission on that, but that was the basis of that.
Okay. Both of you are elected officials as well. Is there a downside to letting citizens vote on a funding issue?
I don't think there is. If you've got a legitimate reason why you feel that you need a project, that we have a tendency to just put everything on property tax, and from the county aspect, we've been able to build a lot of bridges with KDOT money, matching funds, 80-20 split, which we would not be able to build if we didn't get their matching funds. But we, like I say, we pursue probably every avenue we can as far as getting grant money to do things. But it seems like from the state passing down to the county, it seems like we're getting a little less all the time, and so we have to, like I say, whenever that doesn't get passed down, we only have one choice, but as property tax. And the county really hasn't used the sales tax option, except that I know of, is when they wanted to remodel Sterling Hall in the fairgrounds, they had to go through a government entity, and so that was, for just a few years, was funded with the update on Sterling Hall, but they did go through the county to get that project done. We do have, I feel our biggest, from the county aspect, the bridges, roads and bridges is a big expense, because we are a large county covering a lot of square miles. And like I said, I had in my notes here, we did do 40 miles of overlay this last year, and we do that project about every 5 years, because we can get a better bid if we do a large amount of highway at one time. And so we try to do 40 miles or so, whatever, and then wait 5 years to get that paid for. And so it's getting very expensive, and whether at some time we would want to look at a sales tax on a Pacific road project that would just go strictly for that, that might be an option in the future. But right now we're not looking at that.
Jeff, you already stated that you think that's the only way funding should go, to a vote of the people, so I assume your answer to that, there's not much downside.
Yeah, Dennis, I was told once in a forum that if you can't find an opposing or negative view, you haven't thought it through good enough. And the only negative I can see of people voting on an issue is for tax or for a school or that, is as a society, when people who are not paying for anything vote to pay themselves for something. So I think that's the only negative way that I can think of people voting on an issue is if they're voting basically to give themselves money.
Got some bad news for you there, bud. Thank you, appreciate that. Laverne, I'm going to follow on to you with a question specifically about the county roads and bridges that we had prepared, and you started that. So we have a lot of roads and a lot of bridges in Dickinson County. I think the point was made during the commissioner's race. I don't know whether it was in this room or we're at the visitor center, but it was in the public forum. Dan Reynolds said that in an answer to an economic development question, he said, I think that the county's biggest contribution to economic development is the maintenance of roads and bridges to deal with agricultural traffic that's now in tractor trailers when it used to be in six-wheel trucks.
Yeah, the farming community has changed tremendously during my years of farming. Things have gotten so much bigger and so much heavier, and it's well known that semis going down the road are going to be much more damaging to a road than cars are, and it's just we've had, I feel like, a very good handle on what we have to get done, and I have to commend our road and bridge department. We've put a lot of effort into replacing a lot of these small structures were built back in the 1920s and 30s, and it just gets to the time when, like Jeff said, if you get a lot of things built at one time, they all come due at the same time down the road. So for the last 2 years, they've replaced over 17 structures each year, which is just remarkable that they've been able to get that much work done. Like I say, I could give you some figures here. Dixon County is a large county, and the county is responsible for 100 miles of paved road and 200 miles of gravel road and over 300 bridges. So, you know, if you're replacing 17 small bridges a year, it's going to take several years before you ever get through the cycle. But our biggest concern are the larger bridges that we normally get the matching funds from KDOT, and it seems like now we get put on a list, and then whenever our name comes up, we might get the money, and so it's been very limited how many of the bigger bridges we've been able to get done. But I feel like our county has maybe done better than some of the other counties as far as not being closing roads. We've tried to replace bridges when they needed to get replaced ahead of time, and like I say, we're going to try to continue the best that we can on doing that. We are under the township where we do have townships that are responsible for their own township roads and the small culverts that they are responsible for, but we are still responsible for the bigger bridges. And so that gets taxed from the people in the townships where they live. So like I say, it does a lot of the grading and maintaining gravel on the township roads is their responsibility.
I'd ask you a follow-up question about that, and I'm trying to think of a good way of phrasing it. This is the best I have at the time. I understand how the township system came about here in Kansas. It's very old, very historical. I know some of the 105 counties in Kansas have moved away from it completely, and there is even a hybrid system in about 8 or 10 counties, something like that. I can tell you when I came here and lived here long enough and I've dealt with counties to understand it, I was completely confounded by it because I saw two worlds. I saw Martin's, which is your road and bridge foreman, a very professional guy that just like if I was dealing with a contractor, you know, for dirt work in Colorado building a drill site road, you know, there's same kind of person, same sort of training, same side of output. Will the township system that we live under today, will it meet the needs of our roads and bridges and taxation for the next 10, 20 years?
I guess I'll just give you some of my personal feeling. I feel like I'm a person that looks for any way that I can to be more efficient in what I do. It's just my nature of growing up on the farm, and we were forced to do that if we were going to exist. And I do feel like some townships could work together, and the motor graders, you know, trucks, everything has gotten so expensive, and I feel like as far as being townships that are side by side, have the same motor grader operator, you know, it appears to me that they could be sharing the same motor grader. And the downside is if you get a snowstorm, then it might take you longer to get roads cleared because there's not as much equipment or as much manpower out there to get it done. But I think there's always ways you can work around that. A lot of the farmers have huge tractors with dozers on that you could contract with in case of emergency. So if you don't have the township system, it would be all the county's responsibility. And I truthfully think that the townships can do a better job in their home territory than maybe what the county can do. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Kent, your facilities question, we've already touched on it a little bit, but I do have a follow-up. You know, what is the status of the professional staffing for the hospital system? And I want to ask you specifically about, you just recruited 2 new doctors to Abilene, right?
Yes.
So my follow-up, I want you to comment too on your professional staffing is, what did they ask you about Abilene and what did you tell them?
As far as staffing goes, we currently are, and we talked about this at our board meeting, we are in the process of recruiting a very few. We have very few positions at this time that we need to fill, which we're extremely pleased about. As far as recruitment, with new physicians coming to town, they're extremely interested in the town, what is here. They are both interested in obstetrics, and so they wanted to have some history on the town, know what was here, how the hospital operated. Doctors are always, they have their certain areas of expertise that they like and want to make sure that they can practice that. So with the new facility that they were coming to, number one was a good recruitment tool that we were able to use. But I think they were also very interested in the quality of life and what Abilene was going to avail to them, and what they could provide back to the country, to the community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ray, I'm going to drop down and I'm going to ask you a question about your next 5 years, and the question specifically is, what's your governing body's requirement for revenue trend look like over the next 5 years? That's the question asking. Is it going up, going down? How much? What's that line look like? And how do you perceive funding will be raised for that requirement of revenue?
Well, right now, our construction projects include the First Street Buckeye intersection project, which I already mentioned that it's going to be 90%.
We'll let Mike over if you would.
90% funded by KDOT on that. And here's some other things we're trying to do. We're doing the airport runway rehab project. The water well number 22. A continuation of the Clink project from 7th Street to 13th Street. We're looking at development regulations update, comprehensive plan update, Discover Abilene website, Abilene Cowboy Trail, and the local street improvement program. The First Street and Buckeye intersection project, the Clink project, will be 90% funded by KDOT, as I mentioned before, and 10% by the city. The airport runway rehab project will be 90% funded by FAA and 10% by the city. The Abilene Cowboy Trail will be jointly funded through the Health and Wellness Program and by the city. The local street improvement program will be funded by the city 0.25% sales tax. The water well number 22 will be funded by Water Equipment Reserve Fund. The development regulations update, comprehensive plan update, and Discover Abilene website will be funded by the general funds.
I'm going to combine the questions on the sake of time, and the next one was really how much tax money should be held in reserves on an annual basis and why. So what's your reserve bank account look like today, or your line item, and why is that good, or why is it not?
Okay, to answer that, depending on the rate of inflation, right in the middle range of 15 to 25% of the current year revenues, which is about $1 million of a $6 million budget. For example, in our general fund, we ensure we have a minimum of $1 million to handle emergencies and carry over at least that amount in the next budget year, which I previously mentioned. In addition, we have reserve funds of $480,000 in capital improvement, which is, we're looking at City Hall complex renovation. We have $398,000 in the equipment water fund. We have $605,000 in the sewage fund, and we have $124,000 in the equipment reserve fund. We hold these reserve funds a revenue in case of shortfalls, in other words, emergencies, less sale tax collection. And an example of that is the closure of I-7, the East 275 bound exit and 275 entrance ramp. and also expenditure overruns such as East First Street on that. So,
Jeff, same question. What's reserves look like for the school district, and is that number the right one?
Well, like I said, the state really passes our budget, and we get like a per student stipend or whatever for our budget, and also we have some capital that we have available to us. But we basically carry a zero balance from year to year, and we do have some reserves that are dedicated that the board, and when times were good, the board stashed some money away for dedicated funds, and so they kind of foresee that maybe there might be harder days ahead. And so of those dedicated funds, we have 4.965 million, and I'll just do some of the highlights. At-risk students, we have $856,000 available over, and contingency reserve fund, $693,000. Professional development, $322,000. Virtual education, $202,000, and vocational education, $791,000. And special education, which is become an ever-increasing issue, is at $1.8 million over that. And so these funds are our rainy day funds that we do have available for those specific items. You know, if we have a special needs student, he very well could easily cost us $100,000 that year, or, you know, there's just, you never know what will be faced from year to year. As far as where our funding comes from, our annual budget is $9.428 million, some change. And of that funding, our county supplies $3.245 million. And so there's over $6 million that comes from state and federal aid. And so Dixon County is a beneficiary of a lot of outside money helping educate our students. And so I'm new to the board, and I've learned that I knew school funding was very hard and complicated, and I gained a whole new appreciation for it. There's all kinds of factors of this and factors of that, of high income, low income, special needs, your location, transportation costs. I mean, it's a very complicated process, but those are some hard numbers. Our mill levy is also like one that we do have, and I have a history here from like 2000 to current day. And the low, and I actually do remember this because I purchased a house in about 2001, and the total mill levy at that time was 38.661 mills, and I remember getting a statement the next year when it jumped to 48.262 mills. And so I know that it affects people. And currently today we're at 45.703 mills, and with an average of 44.063. And so that's kind of the history of where we've been at on our mill levy for our school district. And currently, if you look at other districts around us, we're at 45.712, as the paper says. Southeast Lane is low at 39.956, and they don't have a bond interest right now, and they're one of the cheapest in the area, but I believe I heard in the grapevine they're looking at doing something. And the Peabody Burns district to our south is the highest in our area with 69.13 mills. So that's where some of that's the range we have the different school districts in our area.
Thank you. Laverne?
Yes. Several years ago, the County Commission established a policy, and they took advice from our Kansas Association of County Organization, and our policy is to have 25 to 30% of our annual budget in reserves, and that might sound a little bit high, but I guess from the county aspect, we are more at risk at having emergencies come up that will need money. And 2 examples or 3 examples I can give you. The flood in 2006, the tornado in Chapman in 2008, And this last summer, we had quite a bit of road damage from the intense rain that we had that one week. And all these projects, you know, we can turn in and get FEMA money, but you have to have the money up front when these things are occurring, because you have to take action immediately. You can't wait until you get FEMA money to do it. And so we're under conditions where, you know, we have to look and take care of emergencies immediately. And most times we can get FEMA money reimbursement on those type of things, but like I say, it's always delayed before you get it. And so that's the mill levy. I should have written that down.
That's all right. I've never spent a mill anywhere, ever.
But we did the last 2 years. We actually held the mill levy the same. The budget for next year, we did put this 2 mills in for the Justice Department, which we felt like we needed to, and I think it was less than a mill increase in the other budget.
Not a criticism, but a comment. Dealt with county software for a long time. I've never found any citizen anywhere that had a clue what mill meant. Therefore, in the aid to transparency, it's a giant curtain. So they understand how many dollars they pay and how many dollars you spend, and how many services stand in between. My comment is, if we can have more conversations face-to-face over the airwaves or in meetings like this about those essential things, what services do you want and how do you want to pay for them? I think that will solve the transparency problem, that essential question.
My comment on that, the last 2 years we did publish a folder that explained all the services that we provide in this county and explained what those cost to the taxpayers. And it actually enlightened me that we get a lot of services that you don't realize that you're actually getting them, but you are getting those services, and that's where your tax money is going for.
Thank you. Kent, what's your reserves look like, and are you happy with the number?
We are very happy with it. We are different than the other three in that basically over 90% of our revenue comes from patient care. So less than 2% of our operating income comes from taxes. The tax levy is, of course, it's at the 2 mills. It was set in the early 1960s, so it's been over 50 years and it has never changed, and the hospital has no intentions of changing it. The health system spends approximately about $65,000 a day, and our reserves run from 120 to 125 days, so that's roughly about $8 million in reserves that we keep on hand.
33% of your year, right? 125 days. Okay, so we've got a range 15 to 25 from the city. You're at roughly 33. Laverne's at, did you say 25?
From 25 to 30%.
Okay, that's what I wrote down, and I had to calculate a little over here, Jeff, so I may be wrong, but 5 million reserves on a 9 million budget, is that close?
Yeah,
4.5, something like it. Yeah, okay. So that's 60% or thereabouts. So there is a wide range. You've all had the opportunity to speak to why you hold what you hold. The purpose of this is to tell people that so they can tell you what they think about it. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. I forget who has the next question, so I'll just pick on Jeff again. He's easy. He's easy. As we wrap up, Jeff, I have a couple of big questions. The last one's about security, and you've already commented a little of that. There's been a lot going on about security, and the state of Kansas has passed some very specific laws about public buildings and security that have caused agencies like all of you to act. So what is the view of security in your facilities today, and what are you going to do about it and react to both the legislation and the society in which you live?
Yeah, I think schools have been one of the strictest no gun policies. We've had students go hunting and have, not necessarily our students, but country. Leave a gun in their truck and even call Mom, I forgot it, go get the gun in my truck, and they got in trouble, you know, innocently. Back to security, you know, some things are as easy as installing a way for people to exit. Some things are a lot more difficult in trying to control traffic of who goes in there. Right now we have the no gun sign posted, you know, at door entrances, and we would not be able to be insured if we allowed guns in our school district. And so I know the law, and I've read some about it, but I am no expert in that law as far as how it's going to pertain to our school district and the steps that we need to take. I just know that if we allowed guns in our school district, that we would not be able to be insured as a school district.
Okay, thank you. Laverne?
We just had our KC meeting last week, and this was one of the issues that of course all counties wanted to know what we were going to be doing, and it was a good chance to visit with other county commissioners. And like I say, the law reads that our county buildings, we did get we applied for the 6 months extension on the concealed carry. So we got until January 1st to decide what we're going to do. And it's from the information that we got at the conference, I guess one thing that kind of stuck out in my mind was if you take the signs down, you have less liability than if you keep them up. And that seems kind of strange to me, but they said you're abiding by the law. We have to do one or the other. We have to take the signs down, or we have to provide persons at every door with metal detectors and a person monitoring that door to take any gun that a person has with them. And I guess we would like input from the public on this, but like I said, we've got 2 months to decide what we're going to do, and that's not very much time. But we feel like, of course, in some of our buildings, and you can do it building by building. You don't have to go all in or all out. But the only thing that we're probably the most concerned is the courtrooms in our court when they're having court. And like I say, we can provide metal detectors and the security guard of all people going into when they're having. So I think it would be, I don't know how the public feels on it, but you know, if we provided that kind of security at our courthouse doors, everybody that goes in to buy a tag would have to go through security. And I don't know if that's the answer, but what we have done so far, and we feel like we've been very proactive, because we do have cameras at the courthouse on every hallway, every door entrance, and it's monitored 24/7 by our dispatch service. And so, you know, it's not like we haven't done anything. We've had that for quite some time, and like I say, I think maybe having people aware of that more, that they are being watched when they're in their buildings, you know. But when you get a crazy person, you know, I don't know if that makes any difference. And I'm not sure that having a person guarding the door will stop them either. So, you know, it's just an unfortunate thing that we're living with.
Thank you, Laverne. Ken?
Currently, Memorial Health System chose to avail itself of a 4-year waiver that we had the opportunity to do regarding concealed carry. So currently, weapons are banned from all Memorial Health System properties. And we felt that was the best thing we could do right now. The new hospital and the design of it has some increased security measures and things that the old hospital did not. but at this time we just don't allow concealed carry on our properties.
Okay. Mr. Ray?
Well, we're not happy about the change pertaining to concealed carry in public buildings. Our position at this time is to remove the signs in City Hall and other buildings, as the cost of setting up and purchasing equipment and staffing the security checkpoint is too expensive and would take away much needed funding for other priority projects.
You guys are good neighbors. You each move it for the other one.
And we're next door neighbors.
Okay. All right. I'll give you a chance to comment to a general question. I had written a question about the interworkings between state, local, and federal government, how that affects you, but we could probably go a long time on that one. But each of you are responsible to the electorate over a certain segment of our community, and each of you have to deal with local regulations. The city's doing a major rewrite of its planning and zoning code. They see the need, they're doing that on their own. But each of you suffer the burden of regulations that don't originate in your offices. It's been a couple of years now since I heard that any school in Kansas, our local school was a source of this, but had 7 single-space pages of proscribed actions that you must do at the school. It had really nothing to do with the education. It's just regulation. Is it going to get better? Going to get worse? What is the way that local people can at least exert their local influence where we can? Jeff?
You know, I'm a big proponent of local control, and unfortunately, a lot of times, local politics are pretty well ignored, and people focus on the President of the United States or what other national policies are going on, but most of the things that affect people most are a lot of times what happens locally. And, you know, yes, we face those regulations. Like I stated before, in our budget, you know, there's a large portion of it that comes from either out of county, either from within our state or even federal money. And you've had some school districts with the federal lunch program. There were some new standards passed down last year that were quite a stir. And then I've read that there have been some districts that says that, you know what, we'll do without those regulations and we're just going to supply our own school lunches and without the money. And that was a decision that they made. And so I will always be in support of local entities, you know, having the choice to try to, and within the boundaries of the law and all those things. And, I mean, there's always is a dangerous word, or never is always a dangerous word too. So, but you know, I like the opportunities for local entities to take a pass on regulations, and you know, realizing that maybe they may have to foot the bill for that decrease in aid. And you know, I think it's a state of our society when we turn to the federal government for different reasons, and I think you can see that and within the communities of when something happens, one community might turn more heavily to the federal government, where other communities will turn to each other. And so I always like the ability to turn to each other.
Thank you. Vern?
Dealing with county issues, of course, we do have to follow a lot of regulations, and I guess I'm kind of like Jeff in one respect. I feel like maybe the local people have a better understanding of what rules and regulations they need than being handed down a blanket regulation that covers the whole country. And I guess I would encourage people to talk to their legislative people, because we've been very proactive in talking to our legislative people, trying to get them to lighten up a little on some regulations that don't make sense. And I guess my test of it is if it's a regulation that is common sense and, you know, I can live with, but some of the regulations just really are not that much common sense to it. So, you know, I think through the legislative process and the people that get elected is the only way we're going to get those changed.
Kent, You only have a few minutes, so you have to keep it short.
Okay, I won't talk very long because I promised the people at the hospital I wouldn't say what I really thought about this. So, because healthcare always has been and will probably always continue to be one of the most heavily regulated industries in America. We're in the process of healthcare reform right now. You've got Obamacare, you've got CanCare, and all indications are that the federal and the state government are going to continue to be involved in it, and we just have to deal with that. So basically what our stance will be is we adjust to the changes that they put forward. We'll deal with them because it'll remain highly regulated, but we'll deal with what we need to do to handle it.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
Well, except for the concealed and carry, I don't think that we have as many restrictions to follow as other government entities. I think we have more flexibility, and I think our city staff and our city manager does an excellent job on that.
Jeff, I have a question for you. What year was McKinley built? You have to shuffle through.
You have to shuffle through my papers.
I could even take an answer.
1951.
51. Okay. This should be a really easy question. So you have Garfield, McKinley. Garfield 42, McKinley 51.
Yeah.
Abilene High School 55, Kennedy 63, middle school when?
75.
75. What's out of sequence in that chain? It's not just you, anybody. I mean, this is even a question the audience could take if they wanted to. You have Garfield, McKinley, Abilene High School, Kennedy Middle School. What's missing?
Are you proposing a new building that hasn't been built in 38 years?
Well, no, that's already obvious, but in that line of words, what's missing?
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower. Yeah, that's dates. You got the question. So there's a lollipop waiting in the back. So thanks to the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum, we were able to put this on tonight. Thank you for coming and answering all the questions that we ask and being good sports about it. Thanks to those that came. Thanks to those that watch. Feel free to re-engage with these gentlemen anytime you see them in our community. I'm Dennis Weiss. Good evening.